Here we are again, Sandbox session, where again, it's not about performance. It's about play because you can't play wrong in the sandbox. And here I am with the legendary Zach Hoskins. Man,
Here we are.
here we are. And if you've noticed, he has a beautiful setup because he has podcasted. He runs communities. He is just an amazing guy that is truly a beautiful soul, a pure heart, is really all about impacting other people, sharing the gift that he is. And I'm just happy to have you, Zach. So thank you for joining me in the sandbox today.
I couldn't be more excited. I'm super, super thankful for our friendship and everything that you do. So appreciate you.
You know, I'm really thankful too because I meet a lot of people and I kind of assume that I'm going to have a good time talking with all of them. And that just doesn't always happen, you know? uh, and yet every single time we've connected, it's been a joy. So some of the things we're going to talk about today is the definition of success, which, you know, no challenge there. The importance of community, the 5 superpowers, according to Zach, which is empathy, active listening, collaboration, simplicity, and intentionality, and the 5 freedoms: health, time, purpose, relationship, money. Which one do you want to dive into? You want to dive into the big amorphous definition of success?
I think we can. I think it's going to be an interesting trend to see how that evolves over our 90 minutes here, though. It might be an interesting theme that kind of unveils itself as we dive into the other ones. So we could almost kick it off and then also come back to it at the end and kind of see maybe what changed, what didn't change throughout kind of the conversation, because some of the other pieces are kind of thematically involved in that, or what that could be.
I love that. I love that. So you, let's see, entrepreneur, father, as of last, or as
8
of
weeks
what?
ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say 2 months. So
Yeah,
last
that's right.
night, my nephew was born, and I was like,
Congratulations.
I was getting ready. I was like, man, there's a chance because my wife was the doula.
Hmm.
That I'm gonna have to reschedule everything today. And thankfully, the little guy, he knew. He's like, you know what? Uncle Sean is about to go live 3 times today, and I need to come early. So he showed up at 2:20.
Yes.
But talk about how that changes our lives. You know, we're ambitious and we're driven, and you know you're married and you're in an amazing relationship, and then all of a sudden this little miracle shows up, which I don't know. I feel like it can just totally mess up efficiency
Hmm.
and mess up plans. But it also changes the criteria for which we view life. I don't feel like you can completely look at what matters in life. You know, the criteria of what matters in life when you don't have the truest legacy component, which is a child.
Hmm.
Because you can be thinking about legacy, right, Zach? You can be thinking about wanting to, I don't know, impact the world so that your message or your impact goes on.
Hmm.
But truly, now you actually have a little person from your own genetic line that you're responsible for.
Yeah. It's interesting when, just listening to you hear that and kind of lay that out, what that does for, the perception of what that is. Because you said something very, very specific to me as far as the way that I operate and my personality is. I love the efficiency. I love being able to structure things in the best way possible, and kind of, like, for example, I have like an ideal week that I had, been operating off of for the past 4 to 5 years, and kind of iterating and evolving it and kind of batching my time and doing all those things. And then, our son shows up, and it's a very interesting way to see, one, how that structure does go out the window, but two, being able to, and I think a big part of this definition of success and kind of what I'm looking to kind of impart with this topic is the intentionality of what it looks like, or what it can look like. And so, for example, my definition of success before my kiddo was born in relation to this ideal week was can I kind of control this time in a way that gives me joy and manage my energy in that way? But it's interesting because it wasn't a shift in like, okay, you're completely out of structure. You can't use your framework. It was almost just a shift in the way that the framework could be used to then maximize the new definition of success. So, for example, going back to the ideal week, well, cool, I already had the system and the framework set up. So now I can just pull some pieces out and replace them as my definition of success changed, evolved, grew through, like you said, the legacy and how that's looking at changing and, transitioning through that. So that's kind of been an interesting navigating part, that your frameworks don't have to completely go out the window. They can almost just evolve as you evolve with intentionality.
And anyone that's tuning in, you're going to learn a lot about Zach through what he just said. The fact that you have your ideal week, the fact that you have frameworks, you're just someone that lives highly intentional. And then you also mentioned the idea of time. And I think intentionality is something that makes sense in the context of time. We all have, we don't know how many years we have, but in hindsight, like everyone that's still alive, the last year was the same exact time, right? 365 days. I used to know the hours because I was like, oh man, it's fascinating that it's like 20,000 or something like that hours per year that we have to utilize. And you just want to make the most of it. You have one chance at this, and you won't know this yet from experience, but my oldest is 15. And what they say about kids is that the days are long, but the years fly by. And it's like every single day with 5 children. When we had one child, it's like, wow, I get to the end of the day and I would be exhausted. I would be completely depleted. And yet all of a sudden, like, I don't know how I have a 15-year-old, Zach. I don't know where that went. Like, I feel like I could have a 7 or 8-year-old could be my oldest.
Sure.
But it's double that. And all of a sudden I'm looking at possibly 3 years down the road. And now my oldest, my beautiful daughter, is kind of an adult and she's possibly on her own. And it's like, I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
So sorry to kind of make that land for us. I just wanted to honor you for the fact that I love the intentionality that you have.
I think to kind of expand on what you just said, it's you're going to have that time. The way that I think about that is you're going to have that time either way. That 15 years is going to happen regardless of what you do there. So it's almost like, not pick your poison, but pick your route, because you either you pick it or you don't pick it. You're still going to have that time. So why not add a little intentionality in there? Why not take a little bit of time to put in some attention and effort and maybe some strategy into that time, if it is true that the days are long and the years are short? I would rather take that turn towards intentionality, knowing that even if that's true, I'd rather put that energy and attention into that over going the other way and just kind of maybe being more willy-nilly. Again, that's part of my personality and how I operate. But just kind of surrounding myself with mentors like you and a bunch of other fathers and that I've heard from, and that are amazing examples of what this looks like. It's just like, oh my goodness, well, what an awesome opportunity to take some time, take a step back, breathe as best as you can. I mean, we're 8 weeks in, so I mean, like, we don't really have too much of that. We're still working on sleep and all that stuff, but I'm still trying to be intentional about taking some time and taking a step back and looking at it strategically and intentionally, and how can I really be, just present as best as I can.
When I look at you and I see your face, Zach, I don't see a father of an 8-week-old.
Yeah, sure. It could be. It's the camera.
No, it's the whole makeup crew. Like, I know you have a whole
right. That's right.
production
You had him
crew
sent to my house and everything. You have such a professional show, Sean. I'm so proud of you for that.
Obviously, they're not doing a good job on my end. I don't know what's going on with this. No.
Oh, that's so funny.
Zach, one of the things that this is kind of like a random thing is that, I'm down here in the studio because upstairs I'm setting up something so that I can actually have in person, almost like Joe Rogan style hangouts,
Mhm.
interviews. So please let me know when you are in Arizona,
Oh, 100%.
because that has to happen. Like, I'm such a fan of Zach, for everyone that's listening, because I feel like you live from the inside out, meaning it's this heart-centered approach of like, yeah, it's not about the hacks. The hacks are great. Like, I think hacks are awesome. I think being more efficient is amazing. But for you, I still feel like it's coming from a place of meaning. It's coming from a place of significance. Or even like on our call with, Eric and James, it's coming from a place of values. It not simply the outcome of money, the outcome of wealth, the outcome of success. There are real people that end up climbing a mountain. And I don't mean literally. I mean like the mountain of success.
Hmm.
And they arrive at almost a textbook definition of success according to the American dream. And yet they look around and they see that they're completely alone. And the cost for them to get there was ruined relationships, was they don't have trust anymore, was, like they don't have their spouse anymore. And it's like, really? So that's going to be success? You attain some height of expertise, of mastery, of accumulated wealth for what? Is that success to you, Zach?
No, and I think that when you say that, it kind of goes back to the idea or this idea of, and maybe this is more of my business mind creeping in, but growth for growth's sake. If you are out there and you have a business and you just want to continue to grow and grow and you're pushing your team, and you're trying to just absolutely continue to go and grow and all of those different things, but you have no intention behind it, or you haven't taken a step back and like asked yourselves, why are we growing? I think that that's truly where you almost start to summit the wrong mountain. And like when you have this opportunity and when you take this opportunity to take a step back and look around as you're scaling the mountain, you have this cool opportunity to see, are you still surrounded by those you love? Or are you starting to have people drop off? And so that's why I value a cadence of reflection and a cadence of planning in my personal life along with the business life to ensure that whenever you're looking, I loved your analogy of summiting the mountain, and when you get there, no one's there with you. That's incredible because I've seen it happen so many times with individuals I've coached, with individuals I've seen out in the marketplace, with friends, all of these different things. It's you see them striving and struggling and doing this for what? And it's really cool to again just take a step back and climb the right mountain and see if you're climbing it together with other people.
Something you just said actually got me to picture where I'm like, oh my gosh, Sean, like this happened in my life where I had this idea that, man, if only I could provide a better life for my wife and for my kids, meaning I could again reach a certain amount of money and be a better provider,
Hmm.
then everything else will fall in line. And it really was one of those like if thens. But the tragedy of it was that it put so much of what I was wanting to do in life on hold because it was so destination driven. So what I mean by that is like for the first, 12, 13 years of me having kids, I didn't take them any golfing because I was like, well, we don't have that in the budget yet. We don't have money for that yet. So it's like, we're going to have to wait until things are ideal. And I just shared, recently with you about the wrestling mat and what this symbolizes. I wanted to wrestle with my boys. Now,
Hmm.
again, the oldest is 12, my youngest is 8 for my boys. So, we're wrestling, but it's not like I'm going all out.
Sure.
But it's a dream of mine. I wanted to have a wrestling mat when I was in middle school and high school on my own, just so I could practice And then in college, I still wrestled with friends, but not on a mat. So I just kind of always wanted one. And then the second I had boys, I'm like, this is happening. And yet I can see ideals, Zach. So I was like, oh, well, when I have that house and it's that dream house and I have that dream space, then I can get my wrestling mat. And the ideal hasn't happened yet. So do I just put off everything? Do I wait and not get the wrestling mat yet and miss out? And where this is kind of was hitting home when you were sharing that was that I'm like, if I take inventory right now of what I have in life, I have such an amazing wife. I have 5 amazing children and I have their hearts. And when they're in pain and when they're struggling, they can come to me and be like, Dad, like I just need help. And they know I'm going to love them and they know I'm not going to judge them. And it's like, I am already wealthy, even if I haven't hit that target yet of where I want to be when it comes to material wealth. And that was a difficult thing for me because I put so much on that. I don't know, if you want to either weigh in or unpack, or maybe like, societally, is it just because as men, we kind of think that the measure of a man has to do with the car that they drive or their ability to, I don't know where you want to go with that. I just want to share like, hey, like that's so interesting because in my life, I'm just getting some victory in perspective, realizing I don't need to arrive at that point for me to actually feel like I'm successful.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds like an interesting thing that you've been wrestling with for a very long time.
Oh, wrestling with.
From the mini golf to the wrestling. Yes, no pun, maybe pun intended. All right,
That was good. That was good.
I had a mentor once tell me if you can start to think in the mindset and the frame, like kind of the frame of if you can get to this point. I know that there's a lot. I don't know where the point is because there's so much, kind of to get to. I don't know what that is, but I was thinking about this morning on my walk with my dogs, and he told me if you can think of it in the frame of if it doesn't ever get any better than this, I've won. It's like regardless of where your material possessions, your travels, your experiences, all of those things, if you can get to this point where you can look at yourself in the mirror or you can kind of think to yourself and listen to your internal voice and just say, hey, if it doesn't get any better than this, like I've won. And so when you say, you have 5 amazing kids who have your heart and that you've created this safe space for them to come to you if anything happens, I mean, I just take a deep breath in that and I say, screw the wrestling mat. You know what I mean? I just say, man, if it doesn't get any better than that, like, all right, like that's so much. So it's almost a perspective of what's important then. And so like, and again, I think, growing up, my dad used to say like, we're rich, 100% not in the monetary sense. But when you look at family, when you look at friendships, when you look at experiences, when you look at health, and this kind of goes into those 5 freedoms of, health, time, purpose, relationships, and of course, money on the other side. But, you can be rich, and maybe this goes into the definition of success too, is defining what rich means to you. And when I hear rich, it doesn't necessarily seem like the monetary things might be the most important thing in your life. It might be that you've created this space for your kids.
And yet I don't want to paint the picture that like I'm not like an anti-money guy. I think money is amazing.
Yeah.
I've heard people say the whole, money is the root of all evil. And to me, all money does is just reveals what's inside. It magnifies it. So if you are a selfless person that is just on a mission to give and to serve and to elevate other people, and now your money gets 10x, then maybe your impact and opportunity to impact gets 10x.
Yeah.
But if you're selfish and you're poor, when you have money, you just do selfish things at a greater scale. Like it's just money equals scale. That's it. And that's why the people that I love, the people that I think are in it for the right reasons to really elevate, empower, and encourage other people, I want them to be millionaires. I want them to be billionaires. I don't care. Like go as big as you can. Because to me, it's just like it just allows you to have a bigger platform to shine your light in a brighter way. Like nobody wins if Zach feels this pressure of like, well, hey, Zach, you got to play it small, because if you get bigger, that means someone else can't win, right? Because if you win too much, it takes away from other people winning. The whole idea of an abundance mindset or abundance mentality, or I guess the inverse would be the poverty, where truly, Zach, I feel like true abundance isn't necessarily in resource, it's in light. And only you can shine a light that is genuine to you, who God called you to be, who he made you to be, the unique confluence of your giftings. That might seem paradoxical, that you have this super high EQ, love of people, and yet you also have this operational giftings for efficiency, for, I don't know, operationalizing people's chaos into clarity, to be able to have both of those things. And it's like, hey man, like if you ever did struggle with that, which I don't think you do, I would just be like, dude, screw that. Screw all the, like, whatever mindsets are be like, oh, Zach, play small. Whatever voices are like, Zach, you got to hide. You got to limit who you are. It's like, no way. Like, be as grand as you can. Be as big as you can. Because if anything, it's like the whole scripture, like, let your light shine before men because it glorifies your Father in heaven. It's your glory to reveal the aspect of the divine that's in you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know where that came from.
I love
but
it. No, I mean, I think
do it, Zach. Shine.
I'm shining. We're shining this light. No, I appreciate that from you, and that's something that I've gained just in our short 2, 3, 4 conversations together is your passion to help guide others to shining that light and to revealing that gift if they haven't revealed it, and then utilizing that gift to the max. And so I think that's a really cool way that we can kind of combine that to say, okay, cool. Well, now that you know you're not using your gift for the gift's sake, like growth for growth's sake, you can take a little bit of intentionality. And if you put that intentionality behind your gift, well, maybe the gift just causes you to grow, but you have intentionality behind the gift and you're not focused on the growth. And so I love the focus on the gift instead of the focus on the growth.
Can you say that one more time? Because I'm just like, I
Yeah.
think there's something there that's really profound.
I love it.
And
I mean, I think whenever I look at, like, go back to the mountain example, and we're climbing the mountain and we're just growing and we're not looking, we may be casting people aside and we're climbing the summit, and then we look around and there's no one there. So that could be the example of growth for growth's sake without your gift. So the mountain could be, so you have 2 mountains there. You've got this mountain over here that might just be a mountain of money. You've got this mountain over here that's a mountain of impact. And so I think if you choose to skip over your gift and you don't shine that light and you go straight for the mountain of money and you go for growth's sake and you're not intentional about it, you're going to be alone, like you said. But I think if you start with that gift and you focus on the gift, if it's truly the right gift and you're utilizing it and allowing it to flow through you, then I truly believe that the money or the, whatever level of money will come if you focus on the gift first. And so I think even just through our conversation now and kind of combining what you've told me about the context of how you approach life and how you want to provide value, it's interesting because if you can truly figure out that gift, that ultimately could be the definition of success. And then everything else that falls is kind of like a domino. It almost becomes a domino. If you figure out the gift, knock the one domino down, it knocks down thousands of others.
okay, I love where this is going because there's a few things that like I feel like I'm seeing as you're saying that. We're not talking at a surface level here. We're talking at the really rooted, grounded level of identity, where it's like, I am a gift, I have a gift, and the gift is meant to be given. So like who I am is enough. It speaks to worthiness. And I feel like, again, let's introduce the tension of time again. what does this cause in me as I'm hearing this? This gives me permission to slow it down in order to go fast. But like, forget the fast thing. We're not trying to give a paradox here.
Yeah.
I feel like culturally, everything is this manic rush, information, consume. We're consumers. What does that mean? We're constantly needing to get more. Like, if we reflect this back in a really weird way of like when there used to be Blockbuster and it was like special to have a Blockbuster night because you
Yeah.
knew you were gonna go, and maybe you get candy at checkout or you'd get some popcorn, but maybe you get like one or two flicks for the weekend, and it was just exciting. And again, if you're really lucky, your dad and mom would also let you get a video game.
Yes.
But it was like it was a very special thing, and now you have access to anything at your like on you and on your mobile device. So it's like, yeah, we've all heard it. Attention is the new oil, but it's so countercultural to all of a sudden be like, wait a second, Zach, who you are at an identity level is enough. And once you kind of almost like go deep, go inward first instead of outward, the result of that, when that actually gets settled, is I can almost like function. Time exists for me. I don't exist in time to have to scramble and rush around and climb the ladder and be cutthroat and have to hustle and bustle. I can almost like settle into peace and slow things down to really live a life that's meaningful, to create stuff that is meaningful. I want to go into the art paradigm versus the business paradigm. But before I do that, I can just hold a little bit of space for anything that kind of came up as I was sharing that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm thankful for you sharing that. That makes so much sense because it's so true. And I think there may be someone out there or some people out there that are listening to this that, and this is something that I wrestle with too, is just like, well, what if I don't have money? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, is that, it's almost like your ideal kind of thought is like, well, yeah, I could slow down when I have X amount in the bank. And so that's something that I've wrestled with and navigated through because I truly believe that if you do go slow, you go fast. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast type thinking. And Cal Newport wrote a book called Slow Productivity. It came out last year or earlier this year. And it's a really cool book. And he talks a lot about this. He kind of talks about, like, for example, like, I think he mentions like Quentin Tarantino comes out with a new movie every like 7 years. So he's slow to do it. He knows his gift. He recognizes it. He's not out there on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of these things, putting up YouTube videos or whatever that looks like to dilute his gift. He's slow. He's art, kind of creating this art. He's building these things in secret, and then wham, like automatic blockbuster hit that's huge. And so that's just one example, but it's been really interesting to kind of play out that. And one of the key things in his book is less but better. And so that can kind of go in that hustle bustle of saying like, okay, maybe I don't need to focus on 100 things. Maybe I focus on 1 or 3 and do it better. And so I think there's so many different facets to what you kind of went into as far as like how you can slow it down and what you can focus on while still putting food on the table for your family. I think, that's just kind of something that came up.
Yeah. So I think even again, as you're saying that, like a requisite for being able to go slow in the Quentin Tarantino example, I go back to light, where if light is general, if light is broad, think of it just like a lamp. If each of us are walking around, and let's say if light is our uniqueness and light is our gift, or light is something that's authentic to us, and it's getting expressed simply in a general way, then it's really hard to tell where someone's light begins and another person's ends. So if all of a sudden you try to slow down and then express that light in the same way that you're doing, you're still going to be like ignored, undifferentiated. where you have someone like John Lennon, Quentin Tarantino, Tom Brady, that have understood, like, I'm actually so focused and aligned on my superpower that I can go slow because I kind of already know I'm shining distinctly. So now it's more like a laser light. There's color to it, there's dimension to it, and it's impossible to ignore. So I guess the challenge then is like, hey, back to what you were saying about a gift. Take the time. Do the hard work. You've done the work. That's why you have the frameworks. That's why you have these are my values and this is my, you thought so much about it. But Zach, fundamentally, if I don't believe that if I take this path, if I take this journey, I'm gonna find something that's unique. I'm gonna find something that's distinct. And I don't have that security and that confidence, then I'm gonna continue outwardly looking for something, some trend, something popular, something that is in that I have to fake, fake it till you make it. You've all heard that. Something that I need to do, almost like in a performance way, so that I can be accepted or that I can win the game.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it goes back to that really crazy. I don't know if I mentioned this in the interview with you yesterday that people won't know about for 6 months. Just kidding. But that idea that Eric Weinstein, or Weinstein, I don't know how you say his last name, said that some people have never heard their own voice in their head.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so much noise, and I think noise is another great element to kind of consider here. There's so much noise, things are so loud, and what I'm listening to, what I'm hearing, is it just what I've been conditioned to hear based off of pop culture, the programming, or like in the Matrix way, have I broken free where I can actually hear in the depths of like me, Sean Zayas, like my being, my heart, what it is that makes me come alive. So I have permission to then follow that and bet on that. Okay. Sorry.
No, it's huge. It's so hard though. It's so hard to what I'd like to call it. I can't remember who coined this term, but my wife turned me on to it. It's like rewriting your internal CD-ROM. So like as we grew up, we were all kind of programmed or pre-programmed or whatever that looks like. More programmed, not pre-programmed. Some, but more programmed as your experiences happened to you, as you experienced growing up through childhood, through where you got to today. You kind of have had this CD-ROM. If you remember back in the day, burning a CD, you can kind of see that there has been this like recording of all of those things just going over and over your head. And if you don't take a second to scratch that that record, either toss it and put a new CD-ROM on it and write your own, you're going to continue in that loop, which may or may not be the best loop depending on how you grew up or how life has treated you up until this point. And so I think one of the hardest things that is out there to do is, like you said, break the kind of like the Matrix thing. Is like, how do you figure out how to stop that CD-ROM, put your own CD-ROM on there and rewrite it yourself and put in that work.
So Zach, I'm curious, you are good at going from chaos to clarity. You work with entrepreneurs. You're really good at that. Does that translate cognitively where the chaotic visionary type of me, where like, is this something you enjoy where it's like I go abstract and then in that chaos you have no problem bringing clarity to it? Like, does that even work on a cognitive level instead of just like in a practical office setting where you're able to go from just abstract to concrete?
No, I think
like, is this fun for you? I guess is what I'm trying to ask. Like,
oh my gosh, I truly believe that this is part of my unique ability and kind of in my genius zone to on both of those sides, on the tactical side, on the business side, to kind of get down and dirty and clean up those messes or kind of figure out what that looks like to kind of streamline those things and increase revenues, impact profits with less stress, kind of all of that. But I think also whenever you talk about the chaos of, and maybe like craziness that might be going on in your mind, what I truly believe is that there's this fundamental yin and yang out there of individuals who are really good at making messes in the best way, whether that's how you're thinking, whether that's how you're building, whether that's how you're creating, whatever that looks like. And then there's people out there who can come behind that person and clean up those messes in the best way as well. And so I think that whenever you look at that, and you kind of can combine those and find that person who allows you to make the mess and then allowing the other person to clean up the mess, because the person cleaning up the mess probably doesn't want to make the mess, and the person making the mess probably doesn't want to clean it up. You create this amazing kind of synergy between the two that really allows some really cool things to be built and created, and that's what I love. I think that's, at a kind of a baseline level, and that could be at the tactical level or at the human level, I guess.
So even in terms of exploring thought, is it like, why does Sean keep going abstract? Drives me crazy because I want practical, I want concrete. Or is it like, oh, it's neat to see the abstract because my gift is I can take abstract and make it into something practical. Like that's what I'm saying. Is that something where, because I had an employee that was really gifted with organization, like anal in the best way. And I love that about him. He's one of my best friends. I'm like, dude, I love that you're anal because nothing's gonna fall through the cracks. And I know with your checklists and your spreadsheets and your processes and project management, everything's great. But then there was a part of me in the pivoting and the going here and going there that like drove him crazy. So is it like, does that drive you crazy, or is that something that you actually enjoy and like and thrive on?
Yeah, I think over the past, I mean, that has been quite the journey for me, for sure, to kind of figure out how to best navigate that. But I think over the past 10 years that I've been kind of involved in this realm, in this space, I've kind of figured out a way to, I guess, for lack of a better word, just navigate through what that looks like. So it can be a little tedious, but I think for the most part, it's almost just radically accepting where you're coming from and then meeting you there. Because, for example, you may have 20 ideas, and I say 19 of those are terrible, but this one is the one we can absolutely crush. And, like, to the degree that we can come together on that and push that forward, that's a huge win. And so I think just figuring out, again, going back to my personality, the systems, tools, frameworks that we can put into place to maximize those pivots, to maximize those ideas, to maximize all of those, putting barriers in place and kind of not completely just putting you in a box, but almost just allowing us to create this system to thrive together. Because I think if you haven't had a lot of experience working with visionaries, and you're kind of on the other side of that, you're more of a mess cleaner as opposed to a mess maker. I think it can definitely be a broken yin and yang scenario. But I think if you can figure it out, it'll come together for a beautiful masterpiece.
And I think that's also really liberating when it comes to when we're talking about success and people having gifts. It's like the whole idea that we have these amazing strengths that are disproportionate to like other people's strengths, in the sense that like I'm really, really great at certain things and my wife isn't. She's a compliment in so many ways. And that idea, I don't know, there's almost like there's this humility of, man, I need probably like 5 or 6 people around me that don't see things the way that I do, that don't have the gift that I have, because I have this zone of genius, but then I have massive zones of incompetence because I've doubled down on this focus, on this gifting, on this superpower. It's not a superpower that, like, that's where I feel like Superman is misleading. He has one area that is his kryptonite, like one liability, one area, or like Achilles. It's just his Achilles heel that is his one weakness. Where in reality, I feel like for humans, it's almost the exact opposite. We have one disproportionate, massive superpower. And then we have a pretty big area where we're really not that special or significant. in that area or in all these other areas. And that's why it's great, like the way it's been set up, that we need each other. We need other people to truly be able to be at our best and 100%. Like, I can see why your gifting is in such high demand, Zach, because
Sure.
that really helps those CEO visionary types get to actually just shine in who they are.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you just said, as far as like surrounding yourself with those right people, goes into the relationship freedom. Oh, one of the five freedoms that we're going to talk about. And like I said, a lot of these will go together in themes. It's really cool to kind of see. But whenever you start to think about freedom and success and defining that and what that could look like, I think, being rich in relationships that complement you, that push you to be better, that hold space for you to be who you are and who you want to be and need to be, who support you, who are always in your corner. I mean, I think that that is one of the best freedoms out there, is when you find those relationships, business and personal, of course. But that's just kind of a thought that came up as you were talking.
So just tell us a little bit about the basis of these five freedoms. Either if they have some kind of origin to them for you, and I guess kind of the special either meaning or significance of how you use them to just kind of, I don't know, be more aligned to you and
Yeah.
to your goals.
I think so. These freedoms have been defined by Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, an incredible program that I'm super, super thankful and grateful to be a part of and to be involved in. And so when you look at the five, he kind of says four freedoms, with the one in the middle being your health or your being, and kind of that. But you've got time, purpose, relationship, money, and then kind of your health at the center. And so it just seems like, again, going back to my operating system and the way that I approach life, is this framework of like, okay, cool. So if I know that those are the things that are going to give me, especially as an entrepreneur, a lot of freedom, well, then it's pretty simple then, right? It's definitely not easy, but it's really simple to just say, okay, well, what could I do today to increase my health? What could I do today to be intentional with my time? What could I do to intentionally look at my purpose and why I exist, and how can I, that gift, what can I do? How can I surround myself? How can I get in contact with Sean to say, hey, you see things that I don't see, and you see a gift in me that I'm not quite sure I see quite yet. Can you help me unravel that? And then I can put that out there. How can I surround myself intentionally today with more people, relationships that will continue to give me this support network, that regardless of what comes up in my life, I know I have people that I can rely on. And then ultimately, I truly believe that if you have your health, time, purpose, relationship squared away, the money's it's a
It's a
byproduct.
natural consequence.
It's a
Yeah.
natural consequence. It's a penalty for having the other four freedoms taken care of. And I like that penalty, because I'd rather have those four freedoms knocked out and then have that come as a byproduct.
You know what's so interesting about this is that only in like a postmodern world could we actually have this problem. And I'm saying this because if you're a farmer, you don't actually create fruit. You don't do that. You do everything else. You
Mm,
till the land. You make sure you fertilize it. You make sure you pull out weeds that are it needs the right sunlight. The land needs the right, like there's so many things that are involved in you cultivating what you're responsible for. So you protect the seed so the seed can germinate and, actually flourish.
mm,
And then like the fruit comes forth. You can't make the apple seed create like a tree that makes apples. You're not making apples. All
right.
you're doing is protecting the seed and planting and doing what you can do. And the byproduct of doing everything right is you get fruit.
Boom. Perfect. That's huge. I haven't ever thought about it that way, but that makes all the sense in the world. Because yeah, it goes back to like the classic things of like if you're in a business and you're working on sales, so you can't make anybody buy anything. And if you can, you probably shouldn't be in sales. Like just as far as like it's probably just you're probably not doing something ethical. But like what you can focus on is how many calls you make, how many contacts you make, your sales process, what you're tracking, all of those things, and you can cultivate that process and that system to then over time kick out the fruits. And that's you really I love that because I think that's the way that I approach the 5 freedoms for sure. Is I'm cultivating my health, I'm cultivating my time, my purpose, my relationships. And ultimately, if I'm doing that, I'm tilling the soil, I'm cultivating all of that. The tree of freedom is going to bear that, for lack of a better word, it's going to create a money tree. So money does actually grow on trees, Sean. This is what I'm figuring out.
Now we know that. So we got to let people know that we've been lied to this whole time.
Listen up, y'all. If you don't know that money grows on trees, now you do.
And you heard it first here.
Yes.
Playing in the sandbox. So Zach, there's a few directions. I don't know if you're interested in the art business paradigm and then how that can weave into this.
Yeah.
There's these 3 buckets also
Okay.
that kind of were like, I had to identify these 3 buckets, which is like being, output, and outcome, because I realized I had such wrong meanings ascribed to them. I had wires crossed. So for example, what does this mean? If you place your value and your worthiness in any bucket other than your being dimension, then you're going to get in trouble. Because if you base it on your output and you're not doing a good job, you're going to feel inferior. If you place it on your output and you're really doing a good job, you're hustling, then you're going to think you're better than other people. And if you place it on your outcomes, again, same exact thing. Well, then it's all about more or less. Hey, am I better than you because I have more in my bank account? I have a nicer car. It's just super external and shallow. But if you base who you are in your being dimension, in that sense of worthiness, well, hey, it's, I'm made in the image of God. All of us have our dignity couched on something that can never be challenged. All of us made in the image of God, unique, special, worthy of love. Cool. So now that's not changing and that's not up for debate based off of my performance. Great to know. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, do I have control on my output? Or sorry, my outcomes? Like, do I have control on whether or not what I'm doing in my outputs actually makes it so that I, win the prize or get to the height or the campaign reaches 80% yield or effectiveness? I can't control that at all. So even that, I was like, okay, so in my daily how I show up and what I do, I need to have my being dimension kind of like settled. Like, this is who I am. This is, I'm not questioning those things. But when it comes to what I'm responsible for, what I can do, all I can do is just focus on this bucket of outputs, and just trust and believe that the outcomes, like, I can't hold on to them. Like I need to make this happen, because that's kind of what I used to do about, well, I need to get to riches. I need to get to prosperity. And until I reach that place, then I'm going to evaluate my being dimension as I'm inadequate. I'm not enough. Something's wrong with me. And I had wires crossed even with humility, where I kind of thought humility meant that I couldn't be successful, because if I was successful, that means like humble people don't own their gifts. To be humble means you have to, I don't know, you almost have to self-deprecate.
Yeah.
That's literally what I thought. And it's like, oh gosh, no. Sorry, maybe that's not actually like anything special, these 3 buckets, but it just helped me. And maybe I didn't do a good job explaining it. Sorry, Zach.
No, that's great. That's great. I think one of the things that I heard in there was, to the degree that you can be and radically accept your being, you almost take that off the table in a really cool way, just like Steve Jobs or some of these entrepreneurs who wear the same thing every day. Like, your decision fatigue can go down if you know who you are and you know what gift you're bringing and you know your being part. So what a cool opportunity, again, going back to definition of success, climbing the right mountain, being intentional. if you can truly put a little bit of strategy behind your being, which I kind of define as like why I exist and what I stand for and kind of where I'm going at a high level, you don't have to work on that anyway. It decreases your brain power, so you can truly focus on the other things, and it kind of becomes the second nature to you that just. And I kind of talk about it as like, imagine like each opportunity or each relationship or each obstacle or each success is a basketball, and you have your basketball hoop up there and you have the backboard. And so your being is like the backboard. And so you have this basketball and you're going to shoot those basketballs up against your backboard. And if they go in, they're slam dunks. Like, that's great. Like, that's awesome. But if they bounce out, well, you bounced every single opportunity, relationship, challenge, all of these things off of your being. The ones that went in, awesome. The ones that popped out, awesome as well, because you've kind of created these non-negotiables or these things that you've just said. This is who I am. This is who I am being, and I don't really have to think about that. I'm just going to toss it up against the backboard, see if it goes in.
Okay, so the interesting thing there is that like that to me hit me right between, I don't know, hit me somewhere. And I realized, wow, so what I would do is I would misinterpret. If a shot goes off the backboard and doesn't go in, I go, ooh, is my backboard too rigid? Is my backboard in the
Ah,
wrong place? What's wrong with my backboard?
oh, interesting.
And that's where like you come to the wrong conclusion. If it's not
Yeah,
settled, then you're insecure, and the whole time you're thinking, oh, and it's like you're running this massive program in the background on a PC,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
taking up all the
All the right,
CPU,
yes.
and you're just wondering and like searching, and it's just this emotional drain instead of it just being fixed, firm, it's in the right place. It's just that the shot was off.
That's right.
And now the feedback I'm getting can actually help me navigate in life instead of I'm re-questioning the and that was me for I want to say 6 7 years because I hadn't hit success. Okay, sorry. Let's be honest. It's probably more like 12. It's probably more like 12 years where I just kept then going into this like existential crisis of like, what does this mean about me? And that's why
Yeah.
this became so important because I understood being was I needed to get my being correct. I knew that's where like all the power was going to flow. But every single time I wasn't being successful, I would then keep re-questioning the backboard.
Yes. That's yes. Okay. Yeah, that's re- it's so hard to look at those balls that don't go in the net as or those opportunities, those relationships, all of those things, to not radically accept that those things weren't the right thing at that time, and to trust yourself that you set up the backboard with as much intentionality and with as much information as you had at the time. That's so hard for sure.
Well,
The
because
other
the assumption is the backboard is correct, right? Like implied in
right.
that analogy, it's like, yeah, but wait a second, I'm looking and my backboard is only 1 foot wide. Or it's like a little step, like it's a little tongue depressor. Like I don't have a backboard. That's why I keep missing every shot.
Right.
Then I have to do some perfect, nothing but net.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that puts a lot of pressure on you and causes a lot of perfectionism and or could and then could cause a lot of procrastination because you're not wanting to take any more shots because you're not sure if they're even going to be worth it or if they're even going to hit the backboard. Like what why am I even tossing these basketballs up against this because I don't even know if it's even going to hit the backboard much less go in.
Or you have some trauma named Shaq that slam dunks you and shatters your backboard, and now you're like, how do I move on?
True. Going back to something that you said, like the rigidity of that backboard when you get it right. I think something that's been super important and impactful for me is creating that system and cadence of reflection on my backboard. which I do at a high level every day, but then also I do it on a 90-day basis and then on an annual basis. Just to, for example, having our kiddo 8 weeks ago, my backboard changed, you know, and then shifting from just different opportunities over the years. It's an ever evolving opportunity for you to consistently get better or change or whatever that looks like, um, and make that backboard look however you want it to be. And I love the idea of setting it and forgetting it to a degree, but then also having an opportunity to revisit it.
Yeah, almost like knowing, like, you get like a $95, if they even sell such a thing like that with inflation, like starter set where I don't know if it's like not acrylic, but like it would maybe fiberglass, and
Yeah.
it's something, you get it at Walmart, and it's not that great compared to NBA. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's like fully glass or it's
Yeah.
acrylic, but it's something that is like really reinforced. So there's this idea of the material where it's like, well, as I'm leveling up, it's getting truer, stronger. And then when it comes to like almost like a maintenance, it's like, well, integrity, right? Like, does it have integrity? Integrity literally is like the measure of the material to when it'll break.
Yes.
So yeah, it's really interesting. What an amazing analogy you gave there, Zach. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Okay, so super quick. So the art paradigm, business paradigm. I think
Yes.
you're gonna love this.
I can't wait.
It's a really interesting thing to riff on. This woman, Megan Macedo, I think was her name. I saw her at a conference, and she's talking all about how the business paradigm is externally, I'm looking only at the market. I'm only looking at what others are doing. I'm looking at what's trending. I'm looking at what's popular. And I'm having to figure out how to hit the target that the market says is valuable, is important, is in.
Mm-hmm.
And again, there's like performance, there's striving. And the art paradigm is the idea that you don't look outward to do art, you look inward to do art.
Mm-hmm.
Art is what comes out of, she kept saying, the ache of kind of what you were made for. This like grown, it's primal, it's more intuitive than it is intellectual, which is a really interesting thing because I've heard Albert Einstein didn't actually, through intellect, reach E equals MC squared. He intuited E equals MC squared, then was able to use his mental faculties to prove it.
Mm.
So the idea there is that there's something inside of us, our art, that we can intuit, that we have to align ourselves with, that is truly the contribution that only we can give. And it keeps us from having to play that finite game, brings us into an infinite game where you're the only one that can win your
Right.
game. You're the only one that can win. You absolutely should bet on yourself, and you need to give time for yourself to almost like give birth. It's much more, again, like this analogy of giving birth, which you probably saw, it's this huge process of incubating the baby, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Long process. And then it's kind of messy and scary before the glorious entry of the child.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it's almost like you go into chaos or into a storm to birth something beautiful. Versus what I would like to say of like a pet. You can buy a pet today. You can go into a pet store and you instantly get dopamine. It's this new thing. It's cool. I'm not against pets, but pets would be more like in the business paradigm where it's like, what do I need to get? It's not my DNA. It's not of me, but it's like this thing. It's real, and it's instant. You can do it right now. Versus birthing a baby, which is genuinely me. It's of me. It's my own DNA. No one else can knock it off, but it's messy and it takes
Mm-hmm.
time and it takes going inward.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a lot of it's this difference between, are you willing to do the hard work or are you willing to just do the easy? Are you which route are you willing to take? Because it's exactly like you just said, it's so easy to go to the store and buy a pet, in this analogy, and it's so hard to figure out, okay, how do we, who's the right person I want to have a family with? how do I build a relationship that's foundational enough to then start to have that conversation? Then how do we actually make it happen? And does it actually happen? And how long it takes to get it to happen? And then we finally get it to happen. And then it's like, oh my gosh, now we got to navigate all of this. And it's like you said, it's a long process. It's messy. It's beautiful. It's all those things. And I love your analogy there. And I think it pinged me just to say like, okay, well, there's just a really easy way that we can do it. We can look outward and we can follow those trends because everybody else is doing some of these things and it's popular and that's what's looking like, or we can look internal and we can say, I'm my unique selling proposition. I have a gift. And if I truly focus on that, it might not happen as quickly as we'd like it to if we were to follow the trends. But I think that it's so much longer term and sustainable. And
Mm.
like you said, like an infinite game, you're playing with yourself. I mean, and when you said, the only person who can win is yourself. And I think that's the definition of success. And I think, one of the definitions of an infinite game is you can't ever win. And so I think if you're willing to play the infinite game with yourself and continue to get better every day and try to navigate what that is internally and bring that forth, I mean, that's a solid definition of success, in my opinion.
Okay, you guys all just heard this. Zach somehow just weaved together all these seemingly disparate parts into the definition of success. Like we're just gonna end it now because that was just like mic drop moment. Like bam,
Oh, man.
you're like, that's my gift right now, shining.
I love it. This conversation is awesome. I love you, my man. This is fun.
Well, I just appreciate. I feel like when your heart, so it's like from the inside out, when you have purpose, meaning you're authentic, heart centered, playing, being in that art paradigm where it's all about bringing to the world something that it's never seen before because you're an original. You can stack on top of that business best practices. You can layer on top of that hacks,
Yeah.
but those don't go into first degree meaning, purpose, heart, being. Those are like third or fourth degree items that you put there. And what happens is we see people and they end up talking about the third and fourth degree things that made them successful without talking about the heart. And that's where I feel like we're kind of doing a disservice to people to say, hey, all you need to do is slap on the quick fixes, the hacks, read Tim Ferriss, which I like Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, same.
I love that. But that's not the roadmap to success. The roadmap to success doesn't lie outside of you. And for some of you, it's like, oh gosh, well, this sucks, Sean, that you're saying this because that means I got to look in the mirror and I somehow have to reconcile that the eyes that I'm looking back at, I have to trust that person. Like this gets real to me, Zach, because there's been seasons of my life where I've looked in my eyes and I'm like, oh, like, yep, I got love for you, And there's other times I look in my eyes and I'm just like, who the F are you? Like you're just a wretch. I got to bet on you. Man, you sabotage things. Like you're lazy. You're like, and yet that's why we got to talk about what's real. Like if you have shame, if you have bitterness, if you have resentment, if you have these poisons that are in your heart, all it's going to do is hurt you. And I don't think we're talking enough about that. Like you want to shine in life. You want to be able to be authentically brilliant according to the way that only you can. You got to deal with the hard things about life.
Yeah.
You can't keep drinking a poison and thinking it's going to hurt someone else. Like it's going to hurt you.
Yeah. That goes back to there's just so many themes in this conversation, but it goes back to rewriting your inner, your CD-ROM. It goes back to doing the hard work. It goes back to internally carving those things out and pruning and cultivating your soil so that you can produce better fruit. And I'm such a huge proponent for counseling and therapy and all of that and really going in and diving in and looking internally, like you said, holding a mirror up to yourself and really looking at yourself in the eyes and saying, how do I truly feel about this person? And can I trust this person? And what does that look like? And if not, then what do I need to do to get back to that level? Because that's ultimately, like you said, it's ultimately like the baseline. If we're not getting up to that baseline level of being able to trust ourselves and love on ourselves and radically accept the things that are coming up and giving ourselves grace and all of these things, then of course everything else is going to fall to the wayside. Like it's a no-brainer, I think, if you're not willing to look inward and do some inward work to help yourself out, which then helps everyone else out.
Amen. And just so people don't think, we're not talking about perfectionism here.
Right.
I like the word wholeness. And wholeness doesn't imply you're perfect. It doesn't mean that you've ever reached something, because it's not about a destination. It is about the journey. And the journey to wholeness is simply like you just said, it's just doing the work, you know? So much of your mission, Zach, is how you're able to love on other people and empower and elevate them. And yet, I'm probably sure you had to go through some hard work of actually learning to love yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's
Although, if I was as good looking as you and sounded as great as you do, I'd probably be looking in the mirror and being like, that's right, baby. Oh,
nailed
Zach,
it.
you got this.
Nailed it. No, I think there's a lot of, things that come up. Yeah, can I actually do this, professionally? Is, some imposter syndrome, some, self-talk and kind of how those things can start to creep in and all of those things. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that figuring out, like I said, I rely on so many frameworks and an operating system that I've carefully curated over the past 10 years, from long distance mentors to mentors that I've had close, to coaches, to all of this other, conferences and stuff that I've invested in, and just tried to figure out what works best for me so that I can continue to look in the mirror every day and say I am super, super thankful, for who I'm showing up to be day in and day out, and the gift I'm willing to give and the light I'm willing to shine and I'm able to shine. And yeah, the drive that I have to, focus on those freedoms, which ultimately provides impact and value to everybody around me.
You know, as you were saying that, like, I don't know, I'm not trying to get political here, but it's almost like you're like, uh-oh.
This is live.
Yeah. It's almost like as you do that work, Zach, and as you almost like honor your own frailty and humanity and being like, look, we're on this journey together. Like I can't forsake Sean. Like I am Sean. Like I'm with me for better or worse. And learning to give myself grace, learning to keep my own word, learning to challenge myself, but not be like, not to crush myself when I'm falling. When you end up doing the hard work for yourself, then it's like you have a lot of compassion on anyone that's in the game, on anyone that's just trying. So it's like, instead of being like, look at how bad people are, you kind of like realize, wait a second, like I've done terrible things. Like I've screwed up. I've meant to do this and then haven't. I've endeavored to do one thing and completely failed. So like when I look at other people that are struggling, it's like, oh, I can resonate and I can understand that, because I feel like pain and suffering are the great equalizers that literally unite all of humanity. Who of us have not experienced pain? Who of us have not suffered? And not because we've been victims, which that could be true, but simply because we don't have it all figured out. And sometimes we're just dumb. Like I look at myself and I'm like, man, if I could, like, I would be rich if I got money off of all the dumb things I've done. Like, and I think that's just a beautiful thing to come to that conclusion, especially as you're a parent, because it's like, yeah, you see your little guy and they're trying and they keep making mistakes. And this perfectionism of like, oh no, to be successful, you have to just be perfect or genius or the best, or whatever we put these measures, and then all that does is destroy art. All it does is create a context where you can't, like, simple again, back to the whole slowness. You can't embrace slowness. You can't embrace a path of steadiness where you have to give birth to something meaningful when all you're doing is feeling like you're inadequate and you're not enough and you're just trying to search for. Okay, I just realized again, I'm doing it, Zach. I don't like this. I don't want to. I'm not trying to. I'm soapboxing. So Zach, you love the frameworks. Give some people something a little bit more practical because we've been in the clouds. So if practically right now, if I'm wanting to, I don't know, like, have you ever, maybe some of the practical things you've done have to do with maybe like audits, where you kind of audit where you're at in order to establish a baseline. Share something that would be able to help someone start, even like, what would success or meaning be for me, if they want to start that journey?
I think one of the best things that you can do if you've never done anything like this, is to take a look at, and this might be difficult too, but take a look at your current beliefs and your current facts about the 7 kind of spokes of life. I think this was Zig Ziglar or someone basically came up with these 7 spokes of life, or whatever that looks like. And kind of the thought is that if one of these spokes was, broken, you're not able to go through life because you're kind of rolling on a flat tire. And so you can't go fast in life, or you can't get to where you want to go if one of these spokes is broken. And so I like looking at all these 7 areas. And so we look at like your career, your finances, your spirituality, physicality, intellectual, family, and social. And so looking at those 7 aspects of your life, if you take a kind of a 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever that is, and you just write out career, and you think through what's your belief about your career and your professional life, and what do you believe is the current state of that, and what are the facts around that, and just write it out. Do that for your financial, spiritual, physical, intellectual, family, social. And that kind of is a cool way to audit kind of your tire, the spokes of your tire, just to see like, man, on, maybe it's your social, and it's just like, I don't spend any time with friends. I just don't. There's no time. I haven't made time. I haven't been intentional. I've let friendships fall to the wayside. Well, let's flip that around and say, well, what a cool opportunity you get to maximize on now that you know. And so I love this exercise. It's very simple, 7 lines, and you just write out your current beliefs and facts across those, and it will show you, kind of cast that mirror up to your face and get you a really cool opportunity to go make some tactical wins quickly in your life.
Okay, Zach, that was amazing because I totally just went from like abstract to, oh, by the way, concrete, here you go, on the spot, deliver. And you're just like, done.
Done. It's like I've done this before, Sean.
Rolling in the sandbox, it can get tricky at times.
It's like we're playing. Yeah, it's like, oh, this is great. I love it.
I think one of the things about sand is that, after you go to the beach, you're like, man, it gets in all these places that I didn't expect it to get because it just fills every single space it can. Yeah. And it's messy. And that's why I chose the term sandbox, because it's like when you're playing in the sandbox as a kid, it wasn't about right and wrong. Kids don't play wrong. They're not thinking about that. Yeah. It's the simplest place of, I'm just being, and I'm trying things, and I'm asking the kid next to me in the sandbox that I don't know, I have a truck. Yeah. Do you have a truck? Let's just play together. Let's create together. Let's explore together. And that's why I was like, you know what? I don't want this to be like a mastermind. I don't want this to be like a lecture or some, we have slides and we're teaching people as if we're these massive, crazy, awesome people. We're just hanging out in the sandbox,
Yeah. And I love that. One thing that you just reminded me of is a quote that I have over here on my whiteboard over here is, life is play. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at that, it's only three words, but there's 2 meanings. One is that life is play. Like, that is what life is. It's playing. It's it's exactly what you just said. But then it's also, if you put a period after is, it's life is. So play. So it's very interesting, and I absolutely love that, those three words, and I keep it up on my whiteboard just to remind myself that I don't think that it's worth continuing to live this life if you're not playing, and just kind of giving yourself the opportunity to take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, take some shots with some basketballs and see what goes in, and play a little. That's why I absolutely love this opportunity to have this conversation with you, and just to love on people together. You know, anyone who's listening to this, just hoping that you got maybe some sort of tidbit out of this that could help, and it's just what a cool opportunity. So
Well, Zach, I trust you because you're in the game. You know, you're someone that's just real about life, the challenges, the beauties, the sorrows, and you just show up with that. I don't know, in the tension. We're in the tension, and so many people don't know we're in the tension of what is and what isn't yet. You know, there's always these like paradoxes that we're playing around with, and you get it, and that's why it's like, well, I don't really care where this goes or where it's gone, because I know it's going to be something that's real. It's not going to be something that has pretense or that's fake or that is going to mislead the listeners. Like it's something
mhm,
that's going to allow them to actually wrestle with what's real. And we're all in this game of life together. And it can be confusing, and you have such humility. You keep talking about how you love learning, and you have mentors and coaches, and you submit yourself to other people because you know there are answers, there are things that can unlock breakthroughs for you. But again, I feel like you have this sense of who you are, and you're starting from that place, and then it's like you're getting enhanced and you're getting elevated. And then as you get enhanced and elevated, you just want to encourage and elevate and enhance other people. And that is the definition of the gift. And you live it out. Anything that is about, like anything beautiful, wonderful, glorious about you, you then turn around and you give it away. And you serve other people with that. And it's like, wow, like that's you playing, I guess.
that's it. Welcome to the other side of the conversation where I said we would kind of determine what that definition of success looked like as we navigated through this conversation. I think you just nailed it. So thank you for those words and how you described my gift and ultimately described my definition of success.
So I know a lot of people talk about regrets and in a kind of a negative sense, like, oh, no regrets. And, you know, I think there's a place for that. I like weaponizing regrets, where I like thinking ahead and not using. So when you use regret kind of in the past, I think it's typically a negative thing. But I like using it for the future, where it's like, how can I ensure that I'm not going to regret 10 years from now? Like, if I'm looking back 10 years from now on my marriage, on, you know, my relationship with my kids, on my relationship with my friends, on where my business is at, what do I need to do? Where do I need to be so that I don't actually have a regret? And every single time it comes back to, well, Sean, do I want to live safe? Do I want to live timid? You know, Zach, if you could just say, hey, Sean Zayas, he's a cool guy, but you know, he's one of those guys that just plays it safe. He's one of
Yeah.
those guys that gets scared and he's just really timid, which is kind of true. I'm often very timid, believe it or not. But I know if I continue to be timid, I'm going to have regrets.
Mm.
I'm not going to regret the times that I tried. I'm not going to have regrets for the times that I'm like, you know what? Maybe it'll work. Let me just try. Let me shoot it. You know how many people aren't shooting baskets? They're not even they're not picking up the ball because it's like, well, what if people see me shoot? And they realize I don't have a backboard. Or they realize I don't know how to follow through. I have the wrong technique. I have the wrong form. And I see the guys next to me and they're just like Steph Curry's. They're just all day, three pointers. They're sinking them.
Yeah.
And I can't even do a layup yet, right? Because there's comparison. And that's where it's like, I just want to break off anybody or over everybody this, whatever voices are getting you to just feel like you're inadequate. maybe you're looking around and you got to compare. We're in this together.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this together. And I truly feel like it's almost like we're all holding a line and we're all trying to advance in life together. And when you look to the left or the right, sometimes there's vacancies. And you don't know the synergy that you're going to have with that person that isn't showing up because they're sitting at home. They're not going to the trade shows. They're not getting in the game. They're not picking up the balls and at least trying. And it's like if you and I hadn't met because we weren't out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like already when I talk to you, there's synergy. When I'm
Mm-hmm.
finished talking with you, I'm amped. I'm like, let's go.
Let's go.
Why? Because Zach's doing it. And when Zach broke through and when Zach showed up as an authentic, when Zach showed up as an original, it's almost like in the fabric of our physical, or maybe like, what is that? Quantum. Like in the quantum world, like there's actual energy that I feel like you release showing up as an authentic original that then gives me permission to be like emboldened to do the same thing. But if you show up as a fake, if you show up as a poser and you're just kind of, giving me these lines of what you think works or what you think is trending, man, we have really good BS meters. Then all of a sudden it kind of just makes me feel like, oh, maybe I need to be a poser too. Maybe I need to keep hiding too because he's hiding and it seems like it's working for him where you're not. You're showing this energy up that's like, hey, I had the courage to show up as an original, as myself, and you always just embolden me and encourage me to show up as myself too, Zach. So like, thank you so much, man. I just want to honor you for that. Like you show up, and that takes courage. Anyone that's in the game, it's like that Roosevelt quote. It's not the critic on the sideline that matters. And I don't know about you, Zach, but at times I've been the critic. Were you ever the critic? Were you ever on the sideline, kind of casting stones at times, thinking you could do it better?
Yeah, of course. I don't think anybody, goodness gracious, of course.
And because of
Man.
that, you can have compassion on those that might still be throwing stones because it's like, oh, I've been there before.
For sure. Thank you so much for those words. I mean, I think you create a space where it's simple, not necessarily easy, because I don't think ever showing up authentically original is really easy. I mean, maybe it can come natural, maybe it can be a little bit easier, maybe there's a spectrum there, but it's really simple to show up to these conversations and be original and be authentic and be my true self with you. And I think that's just it's part of your gift of creating that space and figuring out what's the best ways that I can love on my guests, love on me, whatever that looks like, to allow them the opportunity to show up as their true authentic self. So I applaud that, and I'm super, super thankful and grateful for you for that space and the ability to do that and have the conversation.
So Zach, if people are like, man, I want to follow this guy, I want to get to know him, I want to see what he's up to, where do you want them going?
Yeah, for sure. So the best place is LinkedIn. Just to be quite honest, that's where I'm most active. You can find me on X, Twitter as well. But basically LinkedIn's the best. And so if you just search my name on LinkedIn, feel free to connect. I couldn't be more happy and excited to connect with anyone who's listening, because I truly believe that if you're listening to this show, we'll probably jam out really well. I don't think that the audience of your show, Sean, is full of individuals that I wouldn't want to connect with. So I'm super, super pumped to connect with anyone out there for sure.
Dude, I appreciate that. Those are some kind words. Man, I just feel like we need to throw a curveball. Do you have a curveball in closing?
Let's see, curveball. Well, we didn't talk about the 5 superpowers, so maybe that maybe we could tease a part 2, because I couldn't be more happy and excited to maybe have another conversation with you out there. I don't necessarily have a curveball, but I'll at least say that.
Okay. So a book that you read that you were surprised by.
Let me take a look at my stack over here.
He has to just look to the left. Look at that good beard, man.
Stop it. Okay, so maybe not surprised by, but okay, the Cal Newport book, Slow Productivity, 100%. If you haven't read that, if you haven't heard of it, go out, like drop everything, read that. The other one is, if you haven't heard of it, Essentialism by Greg McEwen. Humongous opportunity to really take a look at what's essential. So I think if you combine slow productivity and essentialism, you'll kind of come away with a lot of the way that I operate in my life, and kind of you'll see a lot of where where kind of the way that I think comes from. I don't know if they've surprised me or if I've read a book that surprised me that kind of jumps off, but those are two of my top two recommendations, hands down.
Okay, so this is like incredibly deep and profound, so we're just gonna have to go here.
Okay.
If you feel loved when someone gets you what candy bar?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's so basic, but I love a classic Kit Kat.
Okay, so it's your birthday,
Yeah.
and your wife's like, "Honey, I just want to make you the meal that's just gonna make you so happy." Is it sweet? Is it savory? Or is it like, you have a savory meal and then you also have the dessert that's sweet? What would that perfect meal be?
Oh, I love this. I also want to know yours real quick. While I'm thinking, what's your candy bar?
What is my candy bar? That's a great question because like sometimes I've always liked Butterfinger, but man, I haven't had one in years.
A sleeper.
Yeah.
Butterfinger seems to always, that's highly underrated.
But still, I think at the grocery store, like, in the checkout aisle, because not
Yeah.
everything makes the checkout aisle.
Right.
I would say sometimes like a score bar, like, or like the one, where it's like, I don't know, it's like toffee, I think. So it's
Okay,
like
yeah.
chocolate with like toffee.
Heck yeah.
I go for the score.
Okay. Let's see here. So my wife's dad, when he was still around, used to make, homemade pasta sauce, and homemade meatballs and that. And so
Oh,
I think whenever I look at kind of what an ideal meal would be is that angel hair pasta with that homemade pasta sauce and homemade meatballs, and
it's like comfort food. Like you can't go wrong with that.
100%. And a majority of the time when we have that, we're surrounded by, her family and those types of things. And so, or family in general. And so I think the food 100% slam dunk, like absolutely pasta, like that pasta right there. But I think there's a secondary piece to that is the environments that's created typically when we have that. And so I think it would just be
You're not
that
supposed to go deep, Zach. You're not
Sorry,
supposed to go deep.
I thought we were going. I thought you said we're going deep, and then
That
you
was
asked
a joke.
the snack question. we're going deep here. I'm being authentic, Sean. You don't know what you signed up for.
Oh, that's beautiful. So you're saying like it's the meal, but it's the context of the meal.
Yes, Sean.
What a softie here, man.
Welcome.
Wow, you totally took like the most basic question and you actually
Ooh.
made it deep. That was beautiful.
I threw a curveball.
You did.
There it was. Welcome to your curveball. You asked for one. I gave you one.
I totally missed it too. I like struck out on that one. That was a good one.
Yes, got him. Sweet.
Okay, so I have this quote on my wall, and I'm just gonna end with this one. So start before you're ready. Don't prepare. Begin.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, one other one. This is Mel Robbins. It says, "There will always be someone who can't see your worth. Don't let it be you." That kind of ties into what we're saying about success. It ties into what
Right.
we're saying about identity. It ties into what we're saying about like, hey, you can't bet on yourself if you actually think you're a fake.
That's right.
Like if you think you're woefully inadequate. And if that's what you're thinking right now, I'm going to completely disagree with you, push back on it completely and say, no, you 100% are capable, you're brilliant, you're beautiful when you just let the world see you. And it takes courage, but that's exactly what my man, Zach, has done. And you do it so well, Zach. And you give permission for all of us to do that. And bam, that's what success is.
Bam.
It's showing up as your original self. And it takes courage to do that. So Zach, you are 100% a man I admire and respect because you are courageous in everything that you do. And I'm just a big fan, man. So I'm 100% in your corner if you need anything.
Couldn't agree more. I'm super, super thankful for you. Super grateful for the space that you create, the authenticity that you bring, and I'm super, super, super look up to you and admire you as well and it's wild, how close I feel with you just through 3 or 4 kind of conversations like this, and I just truly believe that whenever you find those people that you have that connection with, you lean in and you love on them, and you find those people, and yeah, it's just awesome. So thank you.
Guys, thanks for joining us in the Sandbox. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.